So the next part of the equation is this. That first album did really, really well. I wrote 4 songs on my own on it. The next album did pretty well. It did about half what the second one did, and I wrote 5 or 6 of them. And even the Cry for Help song that was on that album called Free, you know, we did 1 million something with that record, and I wrote a lot of those tunes and co-produced it and blah, blah. So in other words, I made quite a lot of money because we sold a lot of, you know, that first album sold over 8 million, I think, you know what I mean? So we sold a lot of records back then, because if you had a hit couple of songs, pop songs, that very often meant you sold a lot of records. And so I just kind of was comfortable with that, but I've never owned a fleet of Ferraris. I've never driven a Rolls Royce into a swimming pool.
You weren't balling out of control.
No, I think, again, I owe that back to my upbringing, in the sense that I'm from a very working class area. My dad had a little business, so I always knew there was a tax man. I didn't understand what it meant as a kid, but I knew he was coming. And I knew he wanted some money from my dad. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So my dad would be sat at home doing his paperwork, and he'd be going, right, well, that's for the tax man. I'm like, what? I kind of thought a tax man was going to come with a bag almost. Do you know what I mean? As a kid, I thought he was going to knock on the door and go, give me the money, you know. But I always knew that was there. And so I think every bit of money that I earned, I think also because I was so busy for, like, certainly the first 3-4 years. Well, I only did it for 4 or 5 years. The first 3 years of it, I was so busy, I didn't buy anything. I didn't even buy a house until quite a few, you know what I mean? Because I was always traveling, I was always away.
Moving.
Yeah. So, and also I think that whole kind of like MTV Cribs, look at my house lifestyle, unless you were one of the absolute greats, Elton John, the Who, the what have you, that, you know, whoever, you didn't live like that. I think people just got on with it and then realized they made some money some years later. You know what I mean?
You tell that to my friends.
Hey, you work with Elton John, man. Speaking of it, what was it like working with him?
Yeah, I mean, that guy is amazing in so many different ways. He got in touch. He, cut a long story short, the first time any sort of connection was Never Gonna Give You Up got this award at the BPI Awards of Single of the Year. And because it was live back then, it was at the Albert Hall. And funnily enough, just mentioned the Who were closing the show and they were playing live at the Albert Hall. So the award for single is pretty much one of the last awards. So I was stood on this podium waiting to get the award with the audience looking at me, but not the TV audience. And I've got this camera on me. And to me, I'm thinking the camera's on. So I'm just stood there waiting for someone to stand up and go, and the single of the year goes to Rick Astley for Never Gonna, right there you go. So I'm just stood there and the Albert Hall's low looking at me. And I'm like, but it didn't happen. No one came on the podium and no one gave me the award. And somebody just went, ladies and gentlemen, the Who. And they just steamed into, like, I don't know what song was that. So I'm just stood there going, what is going on? And I'm literally still on this round podium just in the middle somewhere. And I'm going like, and the camera's still looking at me. I'm going, what do I do? Do I walk? Do I shuffle away? Do I walk away? Do I look at the Who? And I didn't know what to do. And eventually I just kind of like, just sideways, just kind of walked out of the picture.
You
like,
Irish exited.
I just walked away. Anyway, I wasn't even upset because I was too in the sort of nonsense of it all to be upset. I was like, I don't know what's going on. It's television, it's live TV. So I woke up, but believe me, backstage, it all kicked off. My God, there was some like hoo-has, you know, I mean, there really was. And my manager was really angry. I mean, he was like fuming, do you know what I mean? And the Stock Aitken Waterman guys were going ape shit, you know what I mean? It was a big deal because like they'd actually written and produced the song that had done, you know what I mean, the business that year and blah, blah. So anyway, a couple of days later, a crate of, I think it was Cristal champagne arrived at my manager's office from Elton John to me saying, like, I'm really, really sorry. What an awful thing to happen. That's absolutely terrible. All the best. Keep on making music. Don't let it get you down. Deliver a really nice letter. And I was just thinking, like, this is just, how amazing is that? You know what I mean? To sort of, but obviously, as time has gone on, I've obviously understood he's had his moments in life, I'm sure, where he's been let down and he's been, do you know what I mean? And I think he's always done that thing of reaching out to younger artists, sort of saying, look, if you ever want any advice, if you ever want to, you know. So he invited myself out, and my wife and I went to dinner with him and a few friends. And he was just chatting about stuff, really, and just being a nice dude, you know what I mean? And just kind of saying, look, if you ever want to talk, if you ever get, you know. And I also think because obviously he especially in the latter, years, I think he's also been very helpful to people who've been going through major problems, with drugs and drink and all the rest of it and all kinds of things, I think that's what his life is about really now, is about more giving back than it is taking, if you know what I mean. But anyway, that's another world to get into. But on that dinner that night, he said, look, if you ever want me to come and play, if you want to come and play on a record, just get in touch, And I'm like, and I'm listening to him say the words, but I'm not really computing it. So anyway, sure enough, he did. He came and played, and he just rolled up. He just rocked up, and just played piano on a couple of songs on that record that I did when I left Southampton Walkman. And he's just always been great. I made a record a few years ago when I turned 50. I made a record in my garage at home.
50.
Just to kind of say to myself what I could do. I didn't even have a record deal at the time. And we went to see him in Vegas. And I'm saying this because I'm proud of myself, but I also want to say how great he is in that same sentence.
Mm-hmm.
We went to see him just because we've seen him a bunch of times, and I wanted to see the show that he does in Vegas. He was doing the Red Jacket. He's just sat there, and he knows I'm in the audience kind of thing. And he sat there, and he just says to the audience, he says, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, there's a young man in the audience tonight. Not that I was young, but there's a guy in the audience tonight. He said, if you're going to buy a record in the next few weeks or next months, buy Rick Astley's record. Buy Rick Astley's record. It's called 50. It's an absolutely fantastic record. And I'm like, what is going on? It's like,
wow.
And he's always done things like that. I mean, for loads of artists, I think, and he's still keen on working with other artists and doing duets and all the rest of it. And so I just think he's one of those people that I know some people around him. I'm really good friends with David Johnson, who's his MD and his guitar player for all the years that he's been going, really. So I've been to loads of his gigs and, been around some of the stories and sung backgrounds on the Lion King, some of those songs and stuff like that. Because I was just there. Someone says, like, get in there, dude, go and sing, and stuff. And so, yeah, I just think he's one of those people who's still in love with music. He's still, back in the days of CDs and what have you, he would go into stores. I'm sure you've heard this story. It's legendary.
Yeah.
He'd go in there and he'd come out with 2 great big bags of CDs because he still wanted to be like, what's going on? I should know what's going on, and I want to hear that thing. What is it? So,
no, he's the real deal. He was one of the very first people to when I won the BAFTA and the Oscar. He was one of the first people to cold call me and congratulate me, and
amazing.